When God made his original promise to Jacob at Bethel, Jacob was grateful but made a vow with conditions. This is the final part of how God brings him to the point of unconditional trust and faith in the Lord.
Then the Lord spoke to Jacob, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives. I will be with you." So Jacob prepared for his return journey to Canaan. He gathered his family, herds, property, and all his servants. At first, Laban was not happy to let Jacob go back to his father in Canaan, but Jacob was determined to return to his father's country. After some serious arguments and threats, God intervened and warned Laban not to harm Jacob. Finally, Laban made peace with Jacob and had a farewell feast with Jacob, his daughters, and grandchildren. Then he sent Jacob off on his journey back to Canaan.
Now Jacob prepared to face what he feared might be a far worse enemy, his brother Esau. For 20 years, Jacob had been dreading this encounter, but he knew that he would have to do it. This was going to be a very personal encounter which could turn violent.
Jacob sent messengers with words of peace, but they returned with the terrifying news that Esau was already on the march with 400 men. Jacob was very worried. He prayed,
"You are the God of my grandfather Abraham and father Isaac. You have been kind and faithful to me. When I first crossed this river Jordan, all I had was my walking stick. But now I have become wealthy and have a big family with many servants. Please save me from my brother Esau. I am worried that tomorrow he will attack me and the mothers with their children."
Jacob divided everything he had into 2 large groups, so that if Esau attacked one, the other at least might escape. He took nearly 600 of his best animals and divided them into 5 herds. These were to be gifts for Esau. He hoped that these gifts would persuade Esau to forgive him. That night Jacob was very troubled. He woke up late at night and decided to send his wives and his children across a stream. Jacob stayed alone for a while, perhaps to think about what he should say to Esau when they met. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said,
"Let me go, for it is daybreak."
But Jacob replied,
"I will not let you go unless you bless me."
"What is your name?"
"Jacob."
"Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome."
The next day, when Jacob finally met Esau, to his great relief, Esau accepted Jacob's gifts and greeted him warmly. Instead of being angry, Esau wept with joy to see his brother again and embraced him. After a short but warm reunion, Esau went home, while Jacob traveled towards Canaan. Jacob eventually returned to Bethel as God had commanded him. At Bethel, God met him again and reaffirmed his covenant with him. God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." So he named him Israel. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will come from your body. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you." Then God went up from him at the place where he had talked with him.
This time, Jacob worships and acknowledges God with no conditions. He built a stone pillar at the place where God had spoken to him and poured out a drink offering and also some oil on it. He named the place Bethel because that is where God had talked to him.
Shortly after that, Rachel gave birth to her second son. But she had problems in giving birth and died not long after the son was born. She called her son Ben-Oni, but his father changed the name to Benjamin. Jacob's beloved wife Rachel was buried on the way to Ephrath, which is also known as Bethlehem. Jacob set up a pillar to mark her tomb. Jacob finally came home to meet his father in Mamre. Isaac lived until he was 180 years old. Then he breathed his last and died. Esau came back, and together with Jacob, they buried their father.
Laban's sudden change to be more friendly and allow Jacob to return to Canaan peacefully, the strange wrestling match, the happy reunion with his brother Esau were all lessons from God of how he had blessed and protected Jacob. Now, it was time for Jacob to accept the covenant promise and responsibilities and be the leader of God's chosen people. This time, when God meets him again in Bethel to reaffirm his covenant, Jacob worships God unconditionally. His life is far from over. He still has a big part to play in carrying out God's plan.